Makiru and Ban Nevager. Makiru and Ban Nevager. Makiru and Ban Nevager. Makiru and Ban Nevager. Okay, just as a reminder, our early morning devotionals have restarted, and here early morning, 5:30 in the morning. So you're welcome to join that as well. So remember, we were going over this divinity, the Paj, last week. So what I wanted to do was to highlight this portion of the description of this divinity, and then go into the final one of these divinities. Therefore, he's a quintessential healer of the eye of intuition that has been blinded to the truth of relative reality. And basically what this means is that, I'm going to change it as we go through. Basically what this means is that there's a misapprehension of reality. What I mean by that is that the intuitive realization you can say intuitive knowledge, but knowledge can imply something that is a conceptual or due to cognitive processes. And here I'm explaining that this understanding of the relative nature of a physical phenomena is intuitive and not simply by knowledge. Intuitive implies that it's a knowing without concepts or cognitive activity. Cognitive activity meaning the process of thinking or forming concepts or linking principles. So it's a knowing without the cognitive action. And what I mean by that is that if you are perceiving a relative reality and you have to draw a conclusion based upon a mental process that what you're perceiving is illusory, then that's not intuitive. It's good. It is a step in the process, but that's not intuitive. Intuitive is more a realization that what you're perceiving is illusory without the process of thinking or forming a concept in the mind. So it is a knowing. And therefore, when the eye of intuition, when the eye of realization is healed, you develop this intuitive wisdom, this intuitive knowing of the nature of relative reality. And if that happens, the Duat is open to you. If that does not happen, and in a meditative process, you will have to think it through. And that's why in certain meditations, There's lots of thinking and chanting to help to lead the mind to that intuitive understanding. So what is being taught here is that this intuitive understanding needs to be nurtured and developed in your personality. And you do that by the process that we're going through in the Duat process, which now that I'm doing the second book is taking on a whole new, a whole dimension. It's really, I think you all are really going to get a lot out of and really have a divine enjoyment of the second book. His healing and medicinal power is in healing the mind and the soul. So you have to realize what the soul is going through. And the soul has become associated with an ignorant mind. I'm not looking down on you. It's a condition of all human beings. But what separates you from all the other human beings is that you are at least trying to understand that and trying to work through that. Whereas people who don't take on the spiritual process, they don't have a clue. I'll just put it that way. So this is Pajit is kind of a healing power, and it heals the mind by purification, essentially. But then it goes beyond purification. It goes to the process of intuitional knowing of the nature of relative reality. And if you gain an intuitive knowing of the nature of relative reality, the knowing of the relative nature of mind is not far behind, because the universe is a mental construct, really. The Hermetic text says that the all is mind, the universe is mental. The universe is mental, the all is mind. And therefore, you can, and this happens, you gain a kind of profound insight into the nature of physical phenomena, but then you hold on to the mind as a reality. And that's a trap. It's a trap of the mind and the ego. You can become egoistic about the mind. And actually, this has happened in history with people like Adolf Hitler, who had certain psychic powers. You know, the power to influence, the power to speak in a way that mesmerizes people. And even a person like, I think his name is Anthony Robbins, is the motivational speaker. And if you listen to his story, when he was giving all of these motivational speeches, his life was a wreck. He was torturing himself. And that's because if you get attached to the mind, you are attached in a more subtle way to relative reality. And that's torture, because you believe the mind is the end all and be all of all things. And the mind is so transient and is so relative that if you get caught in the erroneous perception of the mind as a reality, then you're going to be tormented by the mind through your actions, your feelings, your thoughts, your desires, etc. So you have to be released from physical phenomena, and you have to be released from mental phenomena as well. Anthony Robbins was and then, he could give good talks and motivate people and get them to believe in themselves, but that's working on the plane of mind in a way that is making the mind more than what it really is, getting caught in the mind. And as spiritual practitioners, your task is to gain insight into the nature of mind itself. Otherwise, you'll be caught by it. So you'll be perceiving the physical world as a relative reality, but perceiving the mind as an absolute reality. And that's incomplete knowledge. That is not full knowledge. And in very complex, no, I'm talking here about deep psychological problems. I know some of you might be very interested in this. That from the perspective of nihilism, nihilism means that a person refutes the causative nature of physical phenomena. So the world is illusory, so therefore it means nothing. They refute the meaning of the physical world, but then they're unable to refute they're unable to come to the realization that the mind is illusory. And so they're refuting the nature of the physical world, not ascribing the causative factor to the world, which is a problem in and of itself. And what compounds the complexity of a personality like that is attaching to the mind. So they misconstrue the basic principle of physical phenomena, which is causation. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. But they attach to the mind. And that's a very complex system. That's a very complex and negative psychological state to come into. And and you see that in different personalities, motivational speakers, etc. You see that in politicians a lot. They bomb people or commit atrocities in the name of some kind of dogma or idea, or for resources, gold or oil. But their mind is so deluded that they're attached to the mind, and so they're tormented by it. And what you are to do as spiritual practitioners is to realize the insubstantial nature of the mind itself. And if you do that, then you gain insight into the insubstantial nature of physical phenomena, and you become released from that. And if you become released from that, then you gain entrance into the Duat region, which is the astral plane. But you don't get attached to the astral plane. That is the paradox. Is you're trying to be released from the physical plane of existence, And so you're saying, okay, my home is the Duat, is the astral. But you have to do so with the understanding. You have to have understanding that even the astral plane is illusory. Because at the instant that you ascribe reality to the astral plane, you are caught by the mind. In other words, you're caught by your own delusion. And then in that state, in that instance, there can be no real clarity concerning the nature of abstract, or the abstract nature of, of spirit, because you're kind of in scapulator or trapped by the the phenomena of mind. These are very important principles to reflect upon as you go through your journey of exploring the nature of mind. And by exploring the nature of mind, you break it up, you break it down, you discover its true nature, and you relieve yourself of the complexities of mental phenomena. And when you're able to do that, that's a high degree of mental health. You're not caught by any delusions or imperfections of the mind. You have insight into its nature, so you're not caught by it. Thus, this divinity represents a special abode of the Duat in MP1, meaning metaphysical process 1, where the inherent misapprehension of reality is dealt a heavy blow, and the tendency to relate to physical phenomena as reality is shattered. And this is a big point, as we said last time. This idea of resolving the issue of the misapprehension of reality. And if you shake that misapprehension and you arise at a intuitive realization, wisdom, knowledge of physical phenomena, you shake that and you break it and you shatter it like a glass, then you come to a centeredness in which you realize that all phenomena are essentially insubstantial manifestation of one's own mind. And so this special abode of the Duat, this is a very important point, that there are certain regions in the Duat that you can go into. And when you go into these realms of the Duat, there are certain principles that are revealed to the unconscious. If the mind is clear enough for the unconscious to be impacted by the experience. So you go into a special region of the netherworld that essentially disentangle or shatters the mind's apprehension of physical phenomena as a reality. This is sort of the unconscious is informed about the relative nature of physical phenomena. And you get there by a certain kind of meditative process, and reflective process on all of these baboon divinities. These baboon divinities are helping you to develop a certain kind of mental condition that will make it possible for you to explore the less phenomenal plane of existence, which is the Duat region. So that's what the Duat text is about. It's not about, you know, this crazy pharaoh who is going to fight demons and things like that. The demons are the manifestation of one's own ego. They're not external factors to yourself. They are external from the perspective that they are outside the realm of your spirit nature. But from the perspective of the relative personality, they are aspect of one's own mind. And so the demons are not doing anything to you. And there are no real demons. They are manifestations, these negative manifestations of the ego. And if you purify the mind through this process, you will pacify those negative manifestations of ego. And you have to have a clear mind to explore the netherworld. You're not going into the netherworld to fight a battle against demons. And that's a misunderstanding of the teaching. You are exploring the less phenomenal plane of existence that brings about a deeper insight into the nature of phenomena. And by the time you are having certain experiences in another world, your perception of the physical plane of existence has already been changed. The idea, therefore, is to gain insight into the nature of the less phenomenal plane, which is a Duat, which is an astral plane. That is how to properly understand the teaching. Okay? Busy. This divinity is associated with heat and fire and contains the means to flame up or to combust in spontaneity. This means that the mind and its illusions are consumed under the fire of spirit consciousness, wherein the illusion of physical time and space construct is incinerated. Thus, this divinity means to flame up, to consume with heat. Therefore, this divinity is associated with the serpent fire goddess Bezit of Metaphysical Process 1. Remember that we're not calling these divisions per se. We are referring to them as metaphysical processes, because what are commonly referred to as divisions are actually psychological processes of mind. These divisions that they are commonly referred to, you have to learn how to apply these to your mind. These are principles of the human psyche, of the mind. These are not things outside of yourself. These are principles within yourself that if you become aware of them, then you can make use of them. The problem is that the normal human mind in its ignorance is incapable of becoming aware of these deep psychological principles of the psyche. This Duat is mystic psychology, but this is not the psychology of simply helping a person to get over certain issues, to break up with a wife or a husband, form of addiction, or some other mundane issue. This psychology targets the issue of the fundamental ignorance, of the lack of understanding and realization of the nature of self. And that's the foundation basis of all other types of mental illness, is a lack of knowledge of self. So when you're getting into this teaching, it's already understood that the personality is already normalized. You're not having deep-seated issues such as depression or anxiety or what is it called? There's another one. It's not coming to me now. It's panic attacks. A person's not having panic attacks and things like that. The person is a normalized person. They're capable of having good, normal human relationships. Not that all the relationships are perfect or any relationship they're in is perfect. Is that they are capable of having good relationships with people. The personality is stable. They're not taking drugs. They're not smoking. They're taking care of their body, their health, things like that. When you get that person, when that normalized person comes to this kind of teaching, you don't have all of those deep psychological those issues to work through. You come to this teaching at a place where now you're ready to deconstruct the principle of the mind itself. And that is a form of mental illness. A normal person who is ready for this teaching is by definition mentally ill. Why? Because the fundamental ignorance persists that is preventative of the realization of the nature of self. So after inculcation into this kind of teaching and higher realization is achieved, then the mental illness of all mental illnesses has been cured. And so we have to go into it knowing that. We have to go into it knowing that, there's something that we don't realize now that we're trying to realize through the teaching, and how we are now is not how we are to be, that there is something higher, more profound that we are discovering about ourselves. This is a very important point to understand. Therefore, this divinity is associated with the serpent fire goddess Bezit. Here's her name. B-Z-Y-Y-T, and the flame is so Bezit, fire, and it's the name of a goddess. So she's a fire goddess. So this divinity, Bezi is related to the fire principle. And so by, by association,